hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki, and on Street Talk, we deal with the things that happen here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Political, social, and economics. Joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside.
Charles Thomas.
Tonight we're going to be talking about our black women. And for me, one of the things is that in the last 15, 16, maybe 20 years is that our men's out here, our men, black men, been calling our women B's, H's, and all of these other different things, and that's not our black women. Our black women were historic, you know. So, and not only our black men, but a lot of our young black women been out here with this scandalous language, and it has nothing to do with our women. So we're going to try to deal with some of that tonight.
Well, I think one of the key factors is to consider your cultural teaching and where it came from. I always try to take it back to antiquity, to our ancient African culture and our history, and see how our forefathers and mothers regarded each other and how they behaved towards one another. And you saw in African spirituality, you did not have this misogynistic notion of God being a man, of God requiring a penis, of he did this and he did that and I'm going to pray to him. No, the Creator was regarded as the whole. And in order to have the whole, in order to make more, to produce more of creation, you needed the masculine and the feminine to create the whole. And the woman was indispensable. Because of that notion, she wasn't treated as less than. The ancient African woman was regarded as a woman who had divine beauty, was powerful, was intelligent. It was indispensable to the creation of the African culture. And too many times, and you start going back in antiquity, and you start talking about important black women, a couple names come up invariably. The Queen of Sheba, mm-hmm. who may or may not have been a historical person, but was certainly, if she did exist, was of a European mindset because she would have lived around the time of the Ptolemy pharaohs. Mm-hmm. And then you hear people talk about Cleopatra, who did exist. She was the last Ptolemy pharaoh. And if you don't know the Ptolemy pharaoh, just think of it as this. Think of the United States where you had all the Native American nations, the Iroquois, the Sioux, the mm-hmm. Chippewa, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you had an invasion of the Europeans and they came in. Mm-hmm. Imagine a European woman stepping into a role that was indispensable to the Native Americans and calling herself the head of this nation. The Native Americans would not look at her as legitimate. They would not look at her as a Native American, as an Indian. They would look at her as an invader who is illegitimately taking this position. That's what Cleopatra was. Cleopatra was the last of the Ptolemy pharaohs who were simply the heirs to Alexander the Greek, who came into the Nile Valley and conquered it and turned it into a colony of his greater colonial expansion, and that was his prized possession, Kemet, the Nile Valley. You saw in that time period the very first illegitimate pharaoh who came down through this Alexander the Greek lineage was Ptolemy, who was a European Greek who decided that he wanted to be a pharaoh, and he forced the mystery school priest to tell him enough of the secret so he could interpret the Meta-Neter, which is what we now call hieroglyphics, which the Africans regarded as the spiritual whisperings of God. Mm-hmm. Sacred knowledge, and it was high-level mathematics, high-level architecture, high-level engineering, high-level law and medicine that was also contained within
astronomy.
This. And it was astronomy, of course, very important. And it was information that the priest said, this is not for you. Now, when you say priests, don't have the European mindset when you think you're talking about a bunch of men, because there was probably almost as many mystery school priests that were female as male. There was no gender distinction. It was all based on your ability to learn this information and convey it at a very, very high level. So when Ptolemy came along and he produced the very first version of Christianity, totally unrelated to what we saw the Catholic Church do roughly 600 years later with the Council of Nicaea. The monks. When he came along with this, you started to see this idea that men were superior and at the front of it. Cleopatra came in simply because she was trying to maintain the status quo, and she used her feminine wiles to seduce Caesar, seduce Mark, produce a child. We've all seen the movies. They always had Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, some white folks playing. And in all fairness, they were probably what we would consider now high yellow, red bones, of mixed race, but they were not the original Africans who were there. So as you go down through the years, you start seeing that the Greeks actually started to worship this black woman. And in many cases, they regarded women like Menorah, Medea, and others as actual goddesses that they worshiped. These were human beings who just had remarkable powers. And you can see as you went on down the line that throughout history, prior to the invasion, you had strong, very strong black women who were military leaders, who were professors, which is what the mystery school priests would be called today, professors, and other roles that today we just don't think of as being appropriate for women or even common for women. Even to this day, you'll occasionally have a woman general, you'll occasionally have a woman president of a university, but it's rare. So, if you start going down through history, you could look at some actual women who did exist, like Queen Makeda, who was in Ethiopia, who was regarded for her beauty and her knowledge. You had Nefertiti, who was in Kemet from about 1292 to 1225 BC. She was indispensable as a diplomat, as an educator, as a woman who made moves, what we would call a move and shaker. You had a schism between Lower and Upper Egypt. Upper Egypt would be what we would call Nubia, which later today would be the Sudan, separated from Lower Egypt. Lower meaning further north, which was later to become Egypt. And they were separated and at a military standoff. She was indispensable at reuniting those two great nations and making Kemet that one last great walk in the sun, as John Henrik Clarke talks about, that 25th dynasty, the last great dynasty of Kemet. Without her, we probably wouldn't have had that. So those are just some of the examples of the greatness that we talk about from that time period.
Yeah.
You were saying?
Well, I'm like what Dennis was saying. The black woman had a lot to do with civilization. Back then, she would raise the children, and it was a balance between male and female, as far as a family being a village and so on and so forth. So her input was important, and their involvement with the family was very important. And then the children, they knew when they were becoming from a child to a man, you know, there was rituals involved and things of that nature. So we lost all that as a people, but in order to reclaim that, we just got to reconstruct the family values that we've lost through colonialism. So we got a job to do. Yeah.
There's another great woman, Queen T of Nubia. She was around 1410 BC, and another great military leader of Nubia, which again is what we would call Upper Egypt, meaning it was downstream, because the Nile flows from south to north, and very strong military leader. You look later on in history, you could look at Queen Ashanti, who was of the Ashanti people in an area we now call Ghana. This woman fought the British for roughly 45 years. And from about 1850 to 1920, until she was captured, she was a military leader. And this isn't that long ago. This is around the time that at the end of our Civil War, moving into the 20th century, she was still resisting against the British as a military leader. This is in West Africa. There was a woman named Queen Candace of Ethiopia, who history has largely forgotten, because if you go all the way back to the original invasion of Kemet by Alexander the Greek, he did not just want Kemet, he wanted the entire Nile Valley. Well, when he went south to an area that we now call Kush, we now call Ethiopia, at the time called Kush, he ran into Queen Candace. She was a military leader who fought and defeated Alexander the Greek. And as a result, Kush never, ever came under the military rule nor the domination of the Greeks like Nubia and Kemet did. This is a woman who led this fight. So, nowadays when you look at how we treat our women in many cases with the names, the disparaging names you brought up, and the roles we assign them. Keep my bed warm, make my food, raise my babies, and shut up when you're around men. That is not African.
No.
That is not who we are.
No.
That is a European misogynistic viewpoint of women. And you can even go so far as to look at the differences between African spirituality and religion. If you look at Christianity, the second iteration, not the first one from Ptolemy Soter, but the one that was established at the Council of Nicaea in 325, when they wrote into history Jesus the Christ and Adam and Eve, you can see that they made Eve this temptress, this seductor, who led Adam astray. And brought him down and made him sin. The very first sin, the original sin, was the fault of a woman.
On the woman.
Right. That is not our history. Thousands of years before the ecumenical councils created Adam and Eve and made up this story about the very first man and woman. We don't. History shows us we don't know who the very first human to walk upright was, and we know that culture took tens of thousands of years to develop. But they certainly didn't have any role for a woman that was less than a man, because remember, again, in order to create the whole, you needed the masculine and the feminine to come together to create a culture that kept building and moving forward. So I think we need to forget some of the stuff that we've been taught over the years about how women should be portrayed and the roles that they should fulfill, and start looking at them as human beings who are just as capable as a man, and that
with value.
And if you want to regard God is some type of entity that has emotions and has anger and has love, that's your business. But get it out of your mind that he has to have a penis, because that's not us. That's a European and Arab, because the Arabs did the same thing. They came into the Nile Valley, they read the Meta Netter, they established a religion that was largely already being practiced in certain ways, even though it was not called Islam.
Right.
And created and wrote the Quran, you know, hundreds of years later.
Yeah.
And created this religion where women had to be demeaned. Had to be demeaned, separate from men,
Yeah,
separate
yeah,
and apart,
yeah,
less
yep.
than.
And very
So you-
superstitious.
Yeah.
So that's an Arab and that's a European perspective. That is not what we are as African, and we need to leave that behind.
Yeah.
I'm
Nicely
gonna.
spoken.
Oh yes, yes.
Well, you know, before we wrap up this conversation, I want to move it forward into the almost modern times. We talked about some of the African women who fought the English in West Africa, but you could go to the Haitian Revolution, and you could go to the Jamaica Moors where they had Queen Nani, who was to this day is worshipped and revered up in the mountains with the Maroons that were never conquered, were never defeated by the British. Queen Nani was a fighter. She was a warrior. She would do things to you if you came up there messing with her children. She wasn't regarded as somebody's B.A.H.
No.
She was indispensable
Yep.
to their people. There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is that, like you were saying, that European or whatever kind of thing that's got our people.
Hoodwink.
Yeah.
And
you
it's
know,
worldwide.
Yeah.
It's worldwide.
Yeah, and you know, to see our women being called all these different things, and for me, I kind of put it on the Hollywood type thing that comes out of Hollywood, where you see these women out here dancing naked and all that. I mean, it's like, these are not our women, you know. This is not thinking, you know.
It's just not Hollywood and the rap videos either. You go to many churches, man. When I was coming up in the Pentecostal church, women could not stand in the pulpit. That was verboten.
Yeah.
You are not allowed there. That is not your place.
With no
woman.
pants.
If you couldn't wear pants, had to wear
Nope.
long dresses,
Yeah.
no makeup,
Yeah.
because you couldn't tempt men by looking too attractive. So
Right.
no makeup,
Yeah.
long dresses,
Yeah.
hide your figure, because as a woman, you're dangerous. Could not stand in the pulpit and speak. If a
Right.
woman was going to make a statement, testify or make announcements, she had to stand on the floor with a microphone separate and apart from the men.
Yeah.
You know, that's that attitude that became pervasive within our culture, and it's demeaned us.
Yeah.
It is
Caucasian
really,
culture.
it's
influence.
European.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that you could say it's objectively or empirically wrong for Europeans to regard their women as less than. That's what they did. You know, at one time they had instead of a polygamy culture, they had a monogamy where you had more men than you did women. They actually shared women to have their babies. This is a historical fact.
Right.
And some people, you know, it's ugly for some people to discover these things. But when you're looking at a culture that regards their women less than, and then regards people of color less than, and regards the white male European as superior and above everybody else, you could go back last week and look at the government shutdown that we just ended today.
Yeah.
You saw a almost completely white European group of men, the House and Senate, decide that rather than allow children who were born here in the United States or came here as very small children who are Americans, don't know anybody in Mexico, don't know anyone in Honduras, don't know anyone in Venezuela or wherever. They cannot stay here because some white European men say, don't pay attention to how my mother and father got here.
Right.
We're going to say that you can't come here because we've got rules and laws.
Yeah.
Forget morals. Forget what's right. Forget what is a godlike thing to do. Let's just arbitrarily decide that you can't come here because we say so.
Us.
And so, us.
U.S.
Us white European males are going to decide what everybody else is going to be able to do and enjoy here. So it's a cultural thing and we have adapted it much to our detriment,
Oh, yeah.
to the point now where most of our children are born in uncommitted relationships. I don't believe in that term illegitimate. If a man and a woman coming together in love and they produce a child, that child is legitimate.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Is water pouring
Yeah,
out of the air.
yeah.
But when you have a situation where the man can't act as if he is in a situation with his equal, with his partner, with his ride or die, you start having this schism, and you start having the defections that we have in our community.
Divide and conquer.
And that's what we have now. I'm gonna quickly talk about a couple of our great women here. Sojourner Truth, abolitionist. She was one of the women who fought the Voting Rights Act. First black woman to win a case against a white man to get her son back. And famous for her was she made a speech, "Ain't I a woman?" And the other great woman, Harriet Tubman, abolitionist, author, engineer of the Underground Railroad, first woman in U.S. history to command an armed military raid, freed about 1,000 slaves. And the thing about it,
It says she could have freed 1,000 more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If
If
they
they'd
would
only
come,
known
they were slaves.
if only they had known they were slaves.
Yeah.
You know, so
And she had a counterpart in the Haitian Revolution.
yeah,
There's a woman named Cecil Fatima who was a lieutenant in L'Ouverture's army. She was a soldier.
Yeah.
She led people, men and women, to help defeat the French,
and they
then the
trusted her.
Spanish, then the English, then the French again. So you know you can go all through history, man, and see the internal innate ability of our women to achieve. I mean, imagine, man, you're talking about a time when, forget Jim Crow, we're talking slavery.
yeah.
You're talking slavery.
You don't
And-
own yourself.
Yeah, and
No.
Harriet Tubman's rolling with a shotgun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
She ain't having it.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And she's telling people like, look, baby, I want to let you know, you look a little jumpy. You look a little nervous.
Yep.
You look like you think about running back,
Yeah.
going to back to
Yep.
Massa. I'm
Yep.
gonna tell you what, this shotgun
Yeah.
ain't for them.
Yeah.
Right.
It's for
you.
cats
Yep,
like you.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you think about running from here
Yep.
and putting us all in jeopardy,
I gotta shut you up.
Yeah.
I
oh,
got
yeah.
something for you.
Yeah.
Now that's a strong individual.
Oh yeah.
And she meant it.
You know,
Yeah,
that's not
yeah.
no. She absolutely
Yeah.
did. She wasn't playing.
Yeah.
She never. She,
Yeah, she was risking everybody.
Yeah.
And you know, she was never enslaved.
No.
Never enslaved.
No.
So
And that's our biggest problem. Snitches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is.
These damn
it,
preachers.
it is, man. It is. It is. You know,
Yeah.
it's just. You know, our that is a thing that's been somehow it's been with us though, man. Ever since we landed here the second time, you know,
Right,
it had
yeah,
them snitches and you know, as I said 1,000 times, when Douglas got ready to escape the first time, 2 guys was with him. A white man back home laying in the bed and knew everything that happened.
Right.
Because the black
Them
got two.
snitches.
Yeah, they told him everything. He knew what time they was gonna leave and everything. Next time he got relieved, 1 guy was with him. Same thing. Next time he got relieved, left by himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Until you make it.
well, you saw that with Nat Turner too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
Again, one of our people is Mr. Maynard, and what do you think? What do you think about some of the things that we've said about our ladies and all of that?
I know for sure the black woman is strong.
Mm-hmm. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, strong physically,
Yeah.
strong mentally,
Yeah.
Spiritually.
very strong emotionally.
Yeah.
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 We have got to recognize as a people that we have come from a race of strong people,
Yeah.
strong
Women.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, too many of us today, especially our black brothers,
Mm-hmm.
we just fold
Mm-hmm.
and give over to somebody else.
Mhm.
Let them do whatever they want to
Mhm.
us.
Yeah.
we put up no resistance. And I mean, there are many ways to resist, but they put up no resistance at all.
Yeah.
And the system that is in place, we call the legal system. It has so many of our brothers handicapped that it's not funny. And because of so many of us as men gone being in this system, we leave a whole trail of children out here without a father, no father figure to guide them. The woman, fortunately she's strong as she is, she works her tail off, supports her children, and we talk about single mother. Well, frankly speaking, some of these kids are better off with the one parent than some of the deadbeats we got called parents.
Yeah.
You know? So, by and large, we have a lot of character, but we have come to the place where, and I know Dennis stresses this a lot, where the European has brainwashed us into being something we're really not. And now we are not even making the effort when someone comes along and try to show them what you really are, who you are, where you came from, and where you ought to be.
And you know, the thing is that we talk, and you know, we talk about our men who done these things, but you know, it's a lot of our young ladies out here saying B's and H's, and it's like,
Oh, they're in the same cesspool.
yeah, you know,
Absolutely in the same cesspool. But you know, Paget was well spoken on his point about our culture and what we need to do. But I think it's important to understand that if you look at the markers of what a father does, spend time with his children, read to his children, help homework, you know, walk them to school, play video
just
games,
be involved.
read, be involved. Actually, black men, and this is a recent statistic. This just came out last year. Black men statistically and Hispanic men statistically spend more time with their children than any other ethnic group out here. So just because you're not legally married.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to?
Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.